Hi, how's it going? My name is Rodrigo Gomez. I teach at San Diego Miramar College. My presentation today is called Challenge Accepted, Engaging Students via Gamification, Comics, and Technology. The first part will be mostly definition, so I'll explain what gamification is for some who might know, talk about how it could be applied in the classroom, not that there is a single way to do it right. I'll briefly discuss how I use graphic novels and comics to engage students in critical conversations, and also how I leverage technology for the classroom. Let's go ahead and get started. Along the way, I'll also be pausing briefly in sections where I might have students reflect on a quote. For example, here's one for you to read to yourself and then think about, especially in terms of the context of the presentation and what might emerge as critical points to discuss. So gamifying the classroom. What does it mean to gamify? One of my favorite definitions actually comes from the book The Gamification Guide by Chris Aviles. In it, he writes, gamification is the use of game mechanics in non-game contexts. So the idea here is that you could take any game mechanics that you want, core elements, the competitive elements, the collaborative elements, attitude-focused elements that gamers tend to bring to the table when they play a video game, or a game, a tabletop game, a sports game in general, and you can apply it to the classroom. One of the ways that gamification could appear in your class could be as simple as turning your points-based activities into XP-based activities. All that would mean is that your students, instead of gaining points for the assignments that they turn in, would gain XP. Typically, when a player gains XP in a video game, then they would expect to level up. In my classroom, there are such levels, and when students do level up, they earn perks that I used to give away for free that are meant to help them out in the classroom, that are now located in a power that they might unlock by leveling. So as students complete small tasks, daily activities, warm-up assignments, they're just unlocking experience. I'm rewarding them for being in the classroom, for putting their best foot forward, for trying really hard, and also obviously for completing tasks successfully. But the goal of this gamification process then would be to turn everything into a moment of experience, something that you can reward. Something else might be if you choose to use an LMS learning management Classcraft I have selected to do, then you can turn your lessons into self-paced modules. The student would begin the quest over here on the left-hand side, and along the way they move on from step to step, going through certain activities, and then at the end they arrive at the end goal. This is very similar to what you might do on Google Docs or Canvas. You already know how to set up modules through Canvas or here through Google Docs. Part of the goal here would be to have assignments scaffolded, have students work through them in a series of steps that are progressive in nature. If you wanted to, you might even allow yourself a few extra articles, a few extra readings to throw in there for students who are ready for the additional rigor or who are interested in learning more about the subject. And you might be able to cover, leaving it to them to pursue additional information, additional knowledge. Now we sort of get to the main of my favorite reasons for using gamification in the classroom. It is fantastic for employing project-based learning. I'm sure you've heard of project-based learning in other places. It is very popular and it is very effective. In particular, I'm going to be talking about my social rhetoric project and an essay project that I assigned, both of which you see examples for here. The first project is a rhetorical analysis project. So I essentially tell students to go out into the world and find 10 images and signs that they find interesting or funny or just worth analyzing more deeply. And then they do analyze those signs using rhetorical concepts. Obviously, Aristotle's classic ethos, pathos, logos. We focus on kairos, nomos, and mythos as well. The goal of this is that they'll employ what we're working with in the classroom as they go through and find their own images and start to realize some of the rhetorical impact of the texts that are out there. The second assignment is a bit more focused on the artistic side, the expressive side that students bring into the classroom. The assignments that you see here are assignments that typically make up the very last essay that my students write. And I do quotes for essay because, as I titled the work, it's called the unessay. It is something that they have to create instead of writing a paper on. I let them know that they are better off choosing an idea that they've already explored in the classroom and then simply transforming the medium. These are some of the results that you see. There's a combination here of poetry mixed with visuals. The one there in the middle is a quilt that a student of mine made in response to the graphic novel V for Vendetta, sort of pointing out the main key moments that he took away from the novel as important. The one there on the right with the girl being absorbed into the phone was a student whose first paper was on the impact of technology and its ability to sort of draw us in. So, why gamify the classroom? Gamification allows you to offer various levels of difficulty. Here, what I mostly mean is every student's going to take the class at whatever level they intend to take the class. If they're looking at it as a video game, then they could play it on easy mode and still pass the class, or medium mode and still pass the class. Or those who really want to push themselves a little bit further can go hard mode and pass the class. So the goal is always to help them pass the class, but to push them as far as they're willing to push themselves, to offer them opportunities for additional rigor, not to demand it, to present it, nudge them towards it. The next idea that I'm really a big fan of here is this idea that there is no game over. Game over? Continue? Anyone who's ever played a video game and lost has faced the dreaded yes/no. And if you mean to beat the game and you mean to play it, then you're going to say yes. And this idea of repeat effort is something that I've tried to promote more in my class. I've had to remove certain hard deadlines in favor of more revision time, in favor of having my students reflect on their work a little bit more. And I have to say that I don't have any complaints. The work has been more methodical, more thoughtful. The students are getting more time for similar assignments. They're also writing about things that they're really interested in. So it all just makes for a very, very good combination. Something else here that I like to focus on is the transferable skills and knowledge that you get from playing video games, right? When you play one video game and you move on to another, it turns out that there's a lot of overlap, a lot of similarity. I like to use this fact to talk to my students about academic discourse, the type of specific language that we want them adopting in a language arts curriculum, to sort of show them how to use academic discourse across the disciplines. Just knowing that they can do that with gaming then allows them to see how it works and how they might transfer then the skills that they pick up in my classroom into different spaces or places. Part of the reason that I'm a big advocate for graphic novels classroom is if you look at this list right here, you'll see a broad range of themes, everything from a memoir that is fiction to one that is nonfiction to a literal account of the March on Washington to a story of a family after the burning that happened in the Los Angeles area just a few years back, to a book on philosophy and philosophers, to a book about famous women who are overcast by history. The point is, these books are easy to read, but they can be treated as very dense material because they are gateways into much broader knowledge. So I like to use these to engage students in discussion. Of course, if you want to use more traditional comic book stories, then these are some that I would recommend because the themes that they address. But again, the goal of getting graphic novels into the classroom is simply giving students something to read that is quick to consume, but takes a while to digest and regurgitate, right? To read a graphic novel and to work with a different medium, visual medium as well as textual, is challenge students to see things a little bit differently than they're used to in a language arts classroom. Now, I wanted to focus on gamification in a very specific way. I mentioned playing a game earlier. So the challenge then is going to be to become a master of art of deception, misdirection, and therefore recognition of fake news. So the way that the game will work is first you have to prepare for the challenge. So start with some basic focused free writing. On a piece of paper, go ahead and spend a few minutes here writing a response to questions 1, 2, and 3. How familiar are you with the ways the web can be used to spread fake news? Are you familiar with or do you understand the main tactics employed by those who spread disinformation? How confident are you currently that you could start a viral campaign that reaches a wide audience? After you've answered those questions, then you can go ahead and click on this button and it's game on. It's called Troll Factory. As you read there on the bottom, it's better if you're moving forward having already reflected on what the activity was like, maybe a quick reflection on what your experience was, something that you took away. I like to have my students reflect with a phrase that begins, one thing that's becoming clear to me. Maybe one thing that's becoming clear to me about this fake news is. Here is another quote to sort of think about as you think about this game about fake news and disinformation. That remains here would really be to now reflect on how you feel post the activity. So how confident are you now that you understand the way that fake news is spread online? How many followers and how many shares did you end up with? Are you surprised by the number of people you were able to reach in just a few posts? What was the most interesting part of playing this disinformation game? How might you use this game in your own classroom? So this is obviously a question for you. For my students, it might simply be, what was the most interesting part of playing this disinformation game? With that, I wanted to thank you for having me and for listening in. I know I covered a lot and nothing in too much detail, but please, if you have any questions about any of it, reach out. I am more than willing to share resources, work with you if you are thinking about gamifying your class in any way, or you simply want to talk about creating activities or assignments that are engaging for your students, I'm always up for collaboration. Below, you'll find my email, you'll find my IG info. You'll also find the URL for a website that I'm creating, which I intend to fill with materials to help out other instructors and just house of my prompts. And if you're curious about any of it, please feel free to visit. It's not a finished website by any means, but if you want to contribute to it as well, please let me know. So it's been a pleasure working with you all. Thank you for having me. I hope you enjoy a fantastic conference. I'll be participating from the sidelines. Thank you again.